Welcome to our deep dive. Today we're going to be unpacking this presentation called Classical Art, a Timeless Legacy.
All right.
And we'll be exploring why this ancient art form still resonates with us, all these centuries later.
Yeah, it's really incredible how these echoes of ancient Greece and Rome,
Mm-hmm.
they're all around us, aren't they? From grand architectural
Yeah,
structures
yeah.
to the very principles of design we use today. Their influence is undeniable.
It really is. Why do you think that is? Why do you think these works created thousands of years ago continue to capture our imaginations like that?
Hmm. Well, think about it. Ancient Greece and Rome were the birthplaces of Western art.
Right.
So their innovative ideas and techniques set the stage for pretty much everything that followed.
Hmm.
They established this foundation that artists continue to draw from even today.
I see. I see.
Yeah.
I've always been struck by the emphasis on the idealized human form in classical art.
Oh, yeah.
It's like they were obsessed with capturing the perfect physique,
Oh, for sure.
both inside and out.
Inside and out, exactly.
Yeah.
And to achieve that idealized representation, they paid meticulous attention to detail.
Wow.
These sculptures weren't just aesthetically pleasing, they were anatomically accurate.
Really?
Oh, yeah, yeah. Artists studied musculature, posture, every nuance of the human body.
So they were like anatomists as well as artists.
In a way, yes.
Yes.
Yeah, they had to understand the body to be able to portray it so convincingly.
Like Michelangelo's David.
Exactly. Have you ever had the chance to see it in person?
I have.
It's pretty remarkable, isn't it?
It really is awe-inspiring.
Yeah, you can practically feel the tension in his muscles.
Yes.
As if he's about to spring into action.
Exactly.
That's the power of classical art.
Yeah.
It captures these timeless human qualities,
Mhm.
strength, beauty, the pursuit of perfection,
Yeah.
and it presents them in a way that transcends time.
Right.
But beyond the human form,
Mm-hmm.
they were also masters of balance and harmony,
Yeah.
these concepts that permeated their entire artistic approach.
That balance and harmony, you can see it everywhere, can't you? Like, look at
Yeah.
the Parthenon.
Oh, absolutely.
It's a stunning example of those principles with its perfectly proportioned columns and that overall sense of order.
You know, the Parthenon, it's beautifully depicted in slide 6 of our presentation.
Oh, yeah.
It's a prime example of a well-preserved Greek temple and a testament to their architectural genius.
Yeah.
And you're right, columns played a vital role in classical architecture.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, they developed 3 distinct styles: Doric, Ionic, and Corinthian.
Ah, yes, the column styles.
Yes.
I've always found those a bit tricky to keep straight.
Yeah, they can be a bit confusing.
Could you break down the differences for those of us who might need a refresher?
Sure. Think of the Doric style as the simplest and most robust, like a strong, unadorned pillar.
Okay.
The Ionic style, on the other hand, introduces a touch of elegance with those scroll-like decorations at the top known as volutes.
Okay.
And finally, we have the Corinthian style, the most ornate of the 3, featuring elaborate floral designs.
Gotcha. So to give you a visual,
Yeah,
imagine the Parthenon with its sturdy Doric columns.
exactly.
Okay,
Yeah.
that helps. So we have the Greeks, masters of harmony, balance, and the idealized human form.
Right.
But where do the Romans fit into all of this? Were they simply mimicking the Greeks?
That's where things get really interesting. While the Romans were certainly influenced by the Greeks,
Mm-hmm.
they developed their own distinct artistic identity.
Okay.
If Greek art was characterized by idealism, Roman art leaned more towards realism, functionality, and the projection of power.
So less about capturing an idealized vision and more about portraying the world as it was.
Precisely.
Okay.
And this difference is strikingly apparent when you compare their sculptures.
Uh-huh.
Greek sculptures often focused on idealized figures and capturing a single moment in time imbued with a sense of dynamism.
Okay.
Roman sculptures, however, were more lifelike, often depicting individuals with remarkable accuracy.
Interesting.
Think of those Roman busts you often see in museums. They're all about capturing the likeness of a person, their unique features, their story.
Ah, I see what you mean. They're less focused on gods and goddesses and more interested in portraying real people flaws and all.
Exactly. Their architectural styles also highlight this divergence.
Okay.
While the Greeks were known for their magnificent temples and those distinct column orders we just discussed,
Mhm.
the Romans were driven by engineering and functionality.
Interesting.
They were masters of the arch, a structural element that allowed them to create impressive and practical structures like aqueducts and amphitheaters.
Oh, speaking of amphitheaters, you can't talk about Roman architecture without mentioning the Colosseum.
Of course.
Such an iconic structure.
It's a phenomenal example of Roman engineering prowess and their emphasis on practicality.
Mm-hmm.
And if you take a look at slide 9 in the presentation,
Okay.
you'll see a great illustration of how Roman architecture incorporated both arches and columns,
Oh, wow.
blending Greek influences with their own innovative techniques.
So we have these two distinct styles emerging from the classical period,
Yeah?
each leaving an indelible mark on Western art.
Yes. And it's important to remember that these styles weren't static.
Right.
They evolved and interacted over time.
Mm-hmm.
Roman artists often drew inspiration from Greek models, but infused their work with their own unique perspective and innovations.
It's fascinating to think about how those innovations paved the way for the art movements that followed.
It really is.
Did the Romans play a role in shaping the artistic landscape of the Renaissance, for instance?
That's a great question,
Yeah.
and a perfect segue into the next chapter of our classical art exploration.
Hmm.
Yeah, the influence of classical art. It's like a ripple effect, extending through history.
Mm-hmm.
Take the Renaissance, for example.
Oh, the Renaissance.
It was a period of great artistic and cultural revival,
Yeah.
and you can see the fingerprints of classical art all over it.
The Renaissance is so fascinating. It's often described as a rebirth of classical ideals.
Right.
I've always been intrigued by how artists of that era drew inspiration from those ancient traditions.
Renaissance masters like Michelangelo, Leonardo da Vinci, and Raphael,
Oh, yeah.
they were deeply influenced by classical art.
Mm.
They studied ancient sculptures,
Wow.
immersed themselves in the ruins of Roman architecture,
Yeah.
and absorbed those principles of balance, harmony, and the idealized form.
Wow.
And then they incorporated these elements into their own groundbreaking masterpieces.
So it's like classical art provided a blueprint,
Yeah.
a foundation upon which these Renaissance artists could build and create their own iconic works.
In a way, yes. However, they weren't simply replicating what came before.
Right.
They were reinterpreting, innovating,
Yeah.
and pushing those classical ideals in new and exciting directions.
Wow.
They took that ancient wisdom and used it to fuel their own artistic revolutions.
It's amazing to think about how art forms from thousands of years ago
I know, it's incredible.
but have such a profound impact on later generations. But this influence wasn't limited to the Renaissance, was it?
Absolutely not. The legacy of classical art,
Mm-hmm.
it can be traced through various art movements.
Okay.
Consider neoclassicism,
Classicism.
which emerged in the 18th and 19th centuries.
Yeah.
It was a deliberate revival of classical aesthetics,
Right.
characterized by clean lines, symmetry,
Mm.
a focus on reason and order. You can see it in the architecture of that period, for example.
Oh, yes. I remember learning about neoclassical architecture.
Oh, yeah.
With its grand columns, imposing structures, and those clear references to Roman temples and public buildings.
Yeah.
It's like they were bringing those ancient forms back to life,
Yeah,
but with a fresh perspective.
exactly. And even beyond specific movements like neoclassicism,
Yeah.
the echoes of classical art,
Hmm?
they resonate through many aspects of Western culture.
I see.
Our ideas about beauty, the way we perceive proportion,
Yeah.
even how we design public spaces,
Hmm.
all of these have roots in ancient Greece and Rome. It's quite
Yeah.
remarkable when you think about it.
It really is. It's as if these ancient civilizations planted seeds that continued to grow and blossom throughout history,
Yeah,
influencing the way we see and create art even today.
for sure.
So to truly understand Western art history, we need to first understand classical art.
Absolutely. It's the foundation upon which so much was built. It's like learning a new language.
Uh-huh.
Once you understand the grammar and vocabulary of classical art,
Right.
you can start to decipher and appreciate a vast and diverse body of work
Yeah.
spanning centuries and cultures.
That makes perfect sense. You've definitely highlighted the importance of classical art.
It's fundamental.
But to be honest, it can feel a bit overwhelming.
Oh,
It's such a massive subject. Where do you even begin?
right.
Do you have any advice for our listeners who are now eager to delve deeper into this world?
Of course. There are so many wonderful resources available.
Okay.
Visiting museums with strong classical art collections,
Yeah.
that's an excellent way to experience these works firsthand.
Right.
You can see the textures, the scale, the sheer artistry,
Yeah.
up close and personal.
I completely agree. Nothing beats seeing those masterpieces in person.
It's true.
I still remember the first time I saw the Venus de Milo at the Louvre.
Oh, yeah.
It was like stepping back in time
Yeah,
and coming face to face with history.
exactly. And don't overlook the wealth of information available
Mm-hmm.
in books and online resources.
Yeah.
There are countless books on classical art, ranging from introductory guides to in-depth scholarly analyses.
Right.
Websites like the Khan Academy and the Metropolitan Museum of Art.
Oh, yeah.
They also offer fantastic online collections and educational resources.
Those are great suggestions. So we have museums, books, online resources, and perhaps even a trip to Greece or Italy to see the ruins firsthand.
And now you're talking.
Yeah.
But even without traveling,
Right.
you can find traces of classical art all around you.
Really?
Take a look at the architecture in your own city.
Okay.
Do you see any buildings with columns, pediments, those triangular structures, often seen above doorways or windows? What about sculptures inspired by classical figures?
Okay.
Once you start looking for them, you'll be surprised by how much classical influence you can find,
Yeah.
sometimes in the most unexpected places.
You're right. I've never really thought about it that way.
It's easy to miss.
I bet if I start paying attention,
Oh, yeah.
I'll start seeing those influences everywhere.
Exactly. And that's one of the great things about these deep dives.
Yeah.
They open your eyes to new perspectives and encourage you to look at the world around you
Yeah.
with a fresh set of eyes.
Absolutely. So far, we've focused on those grand, monumental aspects of classical art.
Right.
The sculptures, the temple, and the iconic columns.
Yeah, the big stuff.
But what about the everyday objects, the things people actually used in ancient Greece and Rome? Do those fall under the category of classical art as well?
They absolutely do. It's
Oh.
easy to be captivated by the monumental works.
Yeah.
But everyday objects,
Yeah.
they provide a fascinating window into the lives and cultures of the people who created them.
I see.
We're talking about pottery, jewelry, furniture, even tools and weapons.
Wow.
These items tell stories just as compelling as those grand sculptures.
That's a great point. I've seen those beautifully decorated Greek vases in museums.
Oh, yeah.
They're often covered in scenes from mythology and daily life, right?
Precisely. Those vases,
Yeah.
they aren't merely beautiful works of art.
Right.
They're also valuable historical documents. They depict scenes of battles, religious ceremonies,
Oh, wow.
athletic competitions, and even ordinary people going about their daily routines.
It's like holding a piece of history in your hands.
It is.
You can almost imagine the artist meticulously painting those scenes thousands of years ago, bringing those moments to life.
And the level of detail and craftsmanship they achieved is simply remarkable. The Romans, for example, they were masters of mosaics,
Oh, yeah.
using tiny pieces of colored glass or stone to create intricate designs on floors, walls, and even ceilings.
Oh, wow. I've seen pictures of those Roman mosaics.
They're incredible, aren't they?
Yeah, the detail is mind-boggling. It must have taken an incredible amount of time and skill
Oh, yeah.
to create those.
It definitely did. It's a testament to their dedication to craftsmanship and their appreciation for beauty, even in the most functional of objects.
Wow.
And speaking of functionality, we can't forget about Roman engineering.
Right. We talked about the Colosseum and their innovative use of arches, but what about their other engineering achievements?
Oh, there were many.
They were known for their roads, aqueducts, and all sorts of impressive structures, weren't they?
Yes, the Romans were incredibly practical and innovative.
Mm-hmm.
Their roads, for example,
Yeah.
they were marvels of engineering built to last for centuries and connect their vast empire.
I see.
They also developed sophisticated aqueducts to bring fresh water to their cities,
Wow.
some of which are still in use today.
That's incredible. It's one thing to create beautiful art,
Right.
but it's another level entirely to create structures that are both beautiful and functional,
Absolutely.
standing the test of time for centuries.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And that's what makes classical art so enduring.
Yeah.
It's a testament to human ingenuity, creativity, and the desire to leave a lasting legacy on the world.
This deep dive has been a real eye-opener.
It's fascinating stuff, isn't it?
I feel like I've just scratched the surface of this fascinating subject.
And that's the beauty of it.
Yeah.
There's always more to discover and learn.
Right.
Classical art is a vast and rich field of study with endless opportunities for exploration.
So for our listeners who are now feeling inspired to continue their own deep dive into classical art, where should they start?
I always recommend starting with what interests you the most.
Okay.
If you're fascinated by sculptures, seek out museums with strong classical collections.
Right.
If you're drawn to architecture, maybe plan a trip to see some of these ancient wonders in person.
And don't forget about all those fantastic books and online resources we mentioned earlier.
That's right. There's a wealth of information out there,
Yeah.
just waiting to be discovered.
Yeah.
And here's a final thought to ponder as you continue your exploration.
Okay.
Look around you.
All right.
How has classical art influenced the world we live in today?
That's a good question.
From the buildings we inhabit to the art we create,
Yeah.
the echoes of ancient Greece and Rome are all around us, waiting to be discovered.
That's a great challenge for our listeners.
It is. Get out there, explore, and keep those eyes peeled for the enduring legacy of classical art.
What a fantastic way to wrap up our deep dive into classical art. For our listeners, remember, there's a whole world of discovery waiting for you. Pick up a book, visit a museum, or simply take a closer look at the world around you. You might be surprised by what you find. And until next time, happy exploring.
It's amazing how much information we get from these seemingly simple objects.
Oh, yeah.
Like you were saying earlier about the Greek vases,
Right.
they're not just pretty pots.
No, there's so much more.
Yeah, they offer a real glimpse into daily life back then.
It's like stepping back in time
Yeah.
and seeing the world through their eyes. Exactly. Imagine holding one of those vases in your hand, running your fingers over the surface, and tracing those scenes.
You can practically feel the history.
Yeah.
You'd be touching history.
It's incredible, isn't it? And think about the technical skill involved.
Oh, yeah.
The red figure and black figure techniques.
Yeah.
The intricate detail.
They were masters of their craft.
Oh, absolutely. And those vases weren't just functional objects. They
Right.
were works of art.
Definitely. And speaking of technical mastery, the Romans were no slouches either,
No, not at all.
especially when it comes to mosaics.
Oh, the mosaics. Those are amazing.
I remember seeing pictures of those elaborate floor mosaics in Pompeii.
Oh, yeah, Pompeii.
Breathtaking.
They're truly stunning.
The Romans were true masters of mosaic art.
Oh, they were. Just imagine the patience
Yeah.
and precision it took to assemble all those tiny pieces
Right.
of colored glass or stone,
I know.
creating those intricate designs.
Yeah, and they didn't just adorn floors with them.
Yeah, they did. Mosaics were everywhere. Walls, ceilings, even portraits.
They really took it to another level.
It's a real testament to their appreciation for beauty,
Mm.
even in the most unexpected places.
Exactly. Beauty and functionality. Those were key for the Romans.
That's right. Speaking of functionality,
Yes.
we talked about the Colosseum and their use of arches, but their accomplishments go far beyond that.
Oh, for sure.
Think about their roads,
The road.
the aqueducts, and that whole complex infrastructure they developed.
It's mind-boggling when you think about it.
These weren't just practical necessities, they were really feats of engineering.
They were,
Yeah.
and they've stood the test of time.
Yeah, the Roman road system, for example, that
Yeah.
was a monumental achievement connecting their vast empire.
It was the backbone of their civilization.
And their aqueducts, these ingenious systems for transporting water
Oh, yeah.
over long distances.
Amazing feats of engineering.
It's incredible that some of them are still in use today.
I know. It's a testament to their skill and ingenuity.
It's one thing to create beautiful art,
Right.
but to combine that artistry with functionality
Yeah.
and create structures that have lasted for centuries.
It's on a whole other level.
That's really genius.
That's what makes classical art so fascinating, don't you think?
Absolutely.
It's a reflection of the ingenuity, the creativity,
Mm-hmm.
the pursuit of beauty, and the mastery of both form and function.
I couldn't have said it better myself.
Their legacy lives on, not just in museums and history books,
Right.
but in the very fabric of our world.
This deep dive has been such a journey. We've only scratched the surface.
It's just the beginning.
But it's clear that classical art is so much more than just a collection of ancient artifacts.
Oh, absolutely.
It's a testament to the human spirit, to our enduring desire to create, to innovate, and to leave our mark on the world.
Well said.
Yeah.
And as you continue your own explorations of classical art,
Mm-hmm.
remember to keep your eyes open and your mind curious.
Right.
You'll find echoes of the classical world in the most unexpected places, reminding you that the past is never truly past, and that the beauty and wisdom of these ancient cultures continue to inspire us today.
A perfect note to end on. It's been a pleasure exploring the world of classical art with you today.
The pleasure was all mine.
And to our listeners, remember, there's a whole world of discovery waiting out there for you. Pick up a book, visit a museum, or simply take a closer look at the world around you. You might be surprised by what you find. And until next time, happy exploring.